I'm actually going to have to start the video a little backwards. I already did all the work and I forgot to do an intro. So I guess I'll just say, hey, it's Saturday. We're going to work on our camper again. We're going to build that seam. We already did the seam. So yeah, so I guess I just kind of had to make an intro. So welcome back, guys. Let's get to work on this thing. Don't forget to look for the hidden egg. Nobody's found it yet. It's hidden really good. It's really hidden really well. So good luck. Anyway, let's get into it. I've put one layer of 1.5 ounce fiberglass mat on here with polyester resin. And one of the reasons you use 1.5 ounce mat is it's really easy to get the air out of it and it saturates quickly. So you can just make shape and form pretty quick. So now I'm going to lightly sand this and then I'm going to put one layer 3 ounce fiberglass mat over the top of it just to make it thicker and stronger. So I'll do that now and then I'll post a video of that. If you put one layer of 1.5 ounce fiberglass mat on there and let it fully cure, I recommend sanding it. And it's not for adhesion purposes. It'll adhere to it no matter what, as long as you don't get contaminants and grease or whatever on it. But fiberglass will cure and bond to cured fiberglass pretty well as long as it's not contaminated. So this is what I would call like a fresh layup. You can lay it right up on the top of that, no problems. Do sand it though, because you'll get these little burrs everywhere. So when you're rolling it out, when you wet out your mat and you put new mat on there, you'll have all these little burrs in some spots. So just give it a light sanding once over like that, and go ahead and just lay up right over the top of it. Sometimes when you're doing layup, you can lay your material out flat like this and just wet it out while it's flat. It's easier to get the resin to saturate into the material than it is trying to get it to saturate on this vertical surface. Like if I just put this on there, you know, bent, the resin just likes to run off of it. So I can let this get saturated. What happens is the resin goes into the fiberglass mat and then it starts to break the mat apart, and then the mat becomes malleable. There's really nothing you can do while you're waiting for that to happen, and we call it letting the material do the work for you. So you just wait. There is a point that you can let it soak in too much and it'll come apart on you. You can't pick it up, it'll just come apart. But it's pretty easy to tell the difference between when it's malleable and when it's too malleable, when it's just going to fall apart on you. So yeah, that's a pretty easy tip there. Just let the resin soak it up. If you're in a real big hurry, you can flip it over. If you want to get really technical, like boring technical, here I'll show you something. This is a little much. So you see how it's got these white spots in it? This is how simple it is. So let's say you have a flat piece like this, right? Just flat. Well, if that flat piece kind of rises up a little bit, the resin will run off of it. So the resin's not saturating through there very well because it's acting like a roof. It's just running the resin off. And that's what happens when you get these white spots in them sometimes. So if it's not saturating quickly, you can take your brush and kind of dab it down just to get that resin to go through, or you can flip it over and wet the other side out as well. All right, so I got it set up here. I'm using a fiberglass roller. This is a metal roller. The reason I like metal rollers is if you forget to clean them and they get stuck, you can just use a torch to burn it all out. So this is a really good example of letting the material do the work for you. This down here is all very, very resin rich. And you can roll your resin up, see that? Like that. Just go ahead and roll it up, let it sit there. Just let that material get soaking wet. This is a temporary plug, so the resin content isn't really that critical. If you want to take resin out, you just squeegee harder. You know, just push a little bit harder. There you go. See? If you're on a budget, don't put that much resin in there. Here's a little secret too. If you want it to soak in really, really fast, add a teeny little bit of acetone to your resin. Don't do that when you're laying up onto, so this tooling gel from the other video, this is the red tooling gel. This is 1.5 ounce layer. Don't add acetone to that. That acetone will go and act like a solvent and it'll eat that gel coat. It'll eat the tooling gel, whatever you're laying up onto. It'll act like a solvent and it'll eat it off. But since I have this already laminated in one layer, I can add the acetone to the resin if I want to it to go faster. I'm not doing that right now, but sometimes I do. And that's a little secret I developed over the years. Never told anyone that, so you're welcome. Yeah, so I'm going to roll this out, add more layers to it. Let's take a minute to look at this corner here. This is a really good example of letting the material do the work for you. This isn't ready to do what I want it to do yet. The resin hasn't soaked into it enough. So you got to be patient. This is not going to do anything until it's ready. Some people will force it. They get in a hurry and they think they can make something happen quicker by rolling it real like this. Keep rolling it. It's not going to saturate any quicker than if you just leave it. You know, like this stuff right here. This is real dry. I actually got to put some more resin on that. But I'll come back to this when this is ready to do what I want it to do, and I'll show you how easy it's going to be to get it to do that. The thing about this is the temperature and your catalysts are the main things. They have catalysts for like 90 degrees. It's really, really hot. They have a 30% catalyst. So just make sure your catalyst ratios are correct to the temperature you're working in, and you'll get all the time you need to work with this material. You don't need to get in a hurry. You can actually kind of just, kind of go into a Zen state with it. I always pretend like it's kind of like a Chinese rock garden, where I'm just sitting here trying to meditate on it and just enjoy it instead of stress out over it and roll it and get all frantic like I'm in a big, big hurry. It's just about catalyst ratio, and if you get that correct, you have all the time you need to work on this. Let's come back to this corner now and see if it's ready, see if I can capture it. So the material might just see how it's stretching apart right there. It's hard to do this with the phone. Anyway, see how it just forms the way you want it? You have to wait for the resin to do what it needs to do to this mat to get that to happen. You can cut it if you want or whatever, but I like to do it like this. Just let it soak up that resin, give it a little bit of time, and you don't have to fight it. You don't have to touch it. You don't even have to touch the material and get it on your hands. This right here is actually a drainage void on the other side from when I first laid it up. Sometimes you can get it to fill up by just getting some resin behind there. See, watch this, it's gonna work. Wow, this is actually gonna work on video. Nothing works for me on video. See how that resin's filling up in there? It's not very critical. If I wanted to, I could take like a toothpick or something and shove it down in there and get it to fill up that void, but this is not critical at all. Anyway, that's how I recommend working with fiberglass mat. Just let the resin soak in, take your time, get your catalyst ratios correct, and just kind of try to meditate on it, really. So the easiest material to work with is carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is absolutely hands down the easiest composite material to work with. It absorbs resin almost immediately when you put it on there. It's malleable right from the get-go. There's this whole thing where everyone thinks carbon fiber is just this exotic material to work with, and it's super hard and it takes all this talent, and it's not true at all. It's actually, you could start working with carbon fiber before you start working with fiberglass mat. It's just, at the end of the day, this is all just fancy paper mache. That's all it is. It's just paper mache that is very, very fancy with expensive resin and expensive materials. All right, I'm going to get this done. Got this all laminated with one more layer, or a layer of 3-ounce fiberglass mat. So we have one layer of 1.5 ounces and one layer of 3-ounce fiberglass mat on there. And I'm going to come back tomorrow and we're going to pull it all apart and then further explain what this is for. I better fix that. It's going to fall off of there. There you go. Try to stay there. So if you have something like this, you could take a piece of tape and you just kind of drape it over it. I'll do that really quick just to show you. Sometimes fiberglass is just stubborn in it. I know that's going to curl back over and that whole piece will fall off later. So I'll show you how to fix that really quick. Yep, it's that easy. Just put a piece of tape on it to hold it over. So we'll come back tomorrow and we'll pull this apart. Get going on this project a little bit more. There you go. See you tomorrow. So we're going to take this off now. The first thing you want to do is you want to drill some holes in the corner, and you want to put some self-tappers like we did here and in the plug that you made, because you want to put that back exactly where it was. So that'll give you some good registered marks to put it back in. I really don't want to do it up here because these are going to leave tooling marks, and I don't want to have any more tooling marks on the bottom of it. So I'm going to put those bolts in there right now, or those screws in on both sides of this. All right, so we put our register screws in there. I am going to Cleco this down. I'm going to put some Clecos here and there, just because I think this part's going to kind of try to warp and change shape on me. The one thing about fiberglass is it does love to change shape on you when you pull it. This has been sitting for, about a day or so. I put the first layer on during the week, so it's still going to want to move. I'll show you once we get it taken apart how this thing's going to want to kind of flex around. We could put stiffeners on it, but this is not part of the mold. We're trying to make a quick plug to make a seam mold. So I don't know, we'll just go along and you'll see what we're doing the more that we do it. So I've Clecoed it. I'm going to pull all the plastic off, and then we're going to stick some wedges in there and start pulling this thing apart. Take the Clecos out, take all the register screws off, and pull the metal and the fiberglass. So we're going to start pulling this thing apart. All of this stuff, I should have trimmed that back. I was just being lazy. Didn't think about it. I was tired at the end of the day. I wanted to go home. So I like these wedges because they have a handle. So I kind of like just to go along and just bump them like this. And that starts to release this for you. You know, so we'll go along and do that and start pulling this thing off of there. I'm going to get under here. I don't want to get on the flange down here because I could probably snap it off by the pressure between this and the flange. So it's not that hard. We'll just go ahead and get it pulled. I want to show you guys something really quick. A lot of people, when the fiberglass doesn't want to pull off of there, they start hitting it with a mallet. Don't hit it with the mallet. Hit it with your handle of your hammer and just tap it. And you want to hit it with this much, like flat against there, like a slap hammer. Don't hit it just on the edge like this. Go like this, and it'll put vibration through your mold for you, or your plug, and it won't fracture. So you'll see a lot of old molds where people will go in there, and there's a point where it likes to stick, like down here is where it's sticking on us, and they'll hit the back of the mold with a mallet or hit the front of it, and it'll start fracturing the mold. So just go like that, and it'll keep you from fracturing and breaking your mold. A putty knife with a round edge. We have a bunch of these floating around the shop, and it's because you need to get a vantage point for your wedges to get in there. I've seen a lot of people over the years use screwdrivers, and this is our plug. I don't want to mar that plug up, so I'm going to use this putty knife and stick it in there, and it's going to give me a good vantage point so I can start sneaking one of these wedges under there. You know, I can't even do it one-handed maybe. See, just give it a little tap. There she goes. See, I didn't even scratch the plug. All right, I took this thing outside now. I'm gonna separate it from the metal. You can see the inside surface. Here we are with our tooling gel came off with the fiberglass, and I'll get that thing pulled off, and then I got to trim this all down, and we're gonna use this as a mold to make the seam. I don't know, just watch, you'll see. All right, I got we got it pulled off of there. So this is the metal piece that we made, and we put all the seam registers in it, the flange registers. And then here you can see they transferred out. Now they're positive. See, they're sticking up. See that? One of the reasons I wanted to do this is I wanted to make sure that these were all positive and they were going to work out the way that we wanted them to work out. And then those little indentations, the nipples that we put on there, they're on there too. I got to sand this little lip off right there, trim this down. This will happen to you sometimes. You see that little chip right there? You just go ahead and take a Dremel and you kind of clean that out really well. And then you just take some tooling gel with some wax, put some wax in it, and just dab it on there, and you can sand that flat. And no big deal. Don't be discouraged if everything doesn't turn out perfect, because it never does. I've been doing this for 29 years, and here I am with a little weird thing that happened. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Just to show you guys how to do that. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe for us, man. Give us some support. I'm showing you guys how to do all this stuff for free. The least you can do is say hi, tell me where you're watching from. That'd be great. All right, I'm gonna trim these down. I'm gonna cut all this excess crap off of here. Got these all trimmed down, and you can see when we go to line them back up, see how nice they fit? It's a really, really nice fit. So these are the indentations from the other piece of metal that we had. So I can get a piece of wet sandpaper and I can really polish these up and make them nice. I know a couple things for sure now. I know that there's no hang-ups, there's no negatives on the mold now versus on those metals. I couldn't be completely sure of that. You know, I had a pretty good idea that they weren't there, but I know positively now that there aren't any. And I can make this a lot nicer because it's easier to work this surface when it's high instead of it being an indentation on the other side. Here's why we did it, because if you see this thing, you can see how it's flexible. It's not as rigid as that metal. See how it moves? There you go. So we're making a production mold, a manufacturing mold, to potentially make hundreds of these parts. So when I get to the point where I'm making the seams for my mold and I have to take one of these seams off, I want to positively know that it's going to come off and it's not going to move the mold at all. I don't want to move the seam on the mold at all when I take this off to make the other section of the mold. So that's why this is flexible. That piece of steel we had on there was too rigid, and I'm almost positive instead of that piece of steel moving, it would have moved the mold a little bit. And then you end up with imperfections. Your mold won't line up properly. It will line up because you're just going to manufacture them together, but you're going to have it a little offset. It's going to be weird. It'll screw your mold up. So that's why we're taking the time to do this part, which seems like it's taking forever. To a lot of people, it seems like it's pointless and it doesn't need to be done. But what I say is that when I go to make the mold, I want to be absolutely positive that these seams are going to come apart the way that I want them to. They're going to flex off of there. They're not going to disturb the molding surface, and I won't have those problems. Now I'm going to wet sand this down to get all the little imperfections out of it. And what this will do is it'll make it so that when we have the mold done, it'll be easier to clean the mold in between gel coats. So you want to sand it down with some 400 wet, and then you can polish it and make it real slick and nice so that your mold cleans up nicely. It's just, you're doing something for yourself in the future. All right, I got this thing sanded down. See, these are going to lock together really nicely, the two surfaces of the mold. You'll have a positive and a negative one of those. We'll drill holes in the mold when we're there. Bolt them together, it'll work out just great. Here's the thing I'm going to do now. This right here, that's a right angle, and right angles generally are not good in fiberglass. Whenever you can get rid of them, get rid of them. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to make a radius with some Bondo there so that when I remold this, it'll change that. And the reason I waited to do that now is it's easier to do it on the inside than when it was the other way when I was working on the negative of this. It's just easier to wait, plan it out, and be like, okay, I'm just going to do that radius when I get there, because it's just all I got to do is that. Instead of the other one, I would have to grind the outer edge out, do all this stuff, whatever. But I have to sand this with 80 grit, be kind of aggressive with it, because this has a bunch of mold releaser on it. I've de-waxed it and sanded it with 400 grit wet, but I'm still going to get a pretty aggressive sandpaper for this right here just to make sure that it stays on there. Yeah, and I'm going to use this. This might look like a concrete setting tool. That's because it is. And when you go and start doing stuff like this, you just make your own tools for stuff. Like this concrete set tool is now a radius gauge to make a radius there and get rid of that right angle. The reason you get rid of the right angle is it breaks a lot. So my mold, I'll have a real hard right angle on one side of my mold, and that's going to chip easily when you take it apart. The mold, if it has to come apart there, it just breaks. So make radiuses when you can. Here's another thing that I always forget to mention, and it's really, really important. When you make your mold, or you make something to make a plug from, or you're making a plug, it's really, really important to always make your plug bigger than it needs to be. So you see the edges here, how they're kind of messed up? It's because this thing is a lot bigger than it needs to be. I only actually need to the end of my thumb right there. That's the part that I want from here down. This is all trim. So when you make anything out of fiberglass that's going to be on the edge of your mold or the edge of your part, you want 1 inch minimum of trim. And that's kind of the industry standard, is 1 inch of minimum, because you're never going to lay up to the edge of your tool. You always need that little bit, because when fiberglass gets out here, this is like where the air and stuff is, because the material will curl over and it won't flatten out for you. So always remember, make your tooling bigger than it needs to be, always. Well, here we have it. We fixed this. We've made our radius here. I actually went and got a new tool. I went over to the lathe and I made myself another tool because I didn't like the other one I had. It wasn't a big enough radius, so I ended up doing that. That's all I did, was I just used that to go like that. And then I took a little piece of sandpaper. You shape it like this. And you just kind of drag it back and forth just lightly, just to get a good shape. The thing is that we're going to remold this whole thing again. So this will be on the outside when I get my other piece that I make off of this. Then it's easier to shape that radius on the other side than it is to shape it on the inside of here. So I'm going to do it because I'll have all the tooling gel on there, and the tooling gel acts like a primer, so I can smooth it all out perfectly the way that I need it. So I'm just going to wax this up with PVA wax. We're going to clean the mold up a little bit. We're going to bolt these back down onto the mold and get ready to make the other piece of these that we need. All right, we changed our radius like we were saying with you. Say hi, Oliver. Hello. Hello, everybody. That's the shop foreman. Okay, anyway. We're locking this thing back down in place. We got to re-wax it. Whenever you make something like this, you can't leave it just sitting around. You got to put it back on the plug, because look at how malleable that is. It's so flexible. It'll move so easy. Technically, you could call this a splash. Sometimes you splash off of something and it's just a real quick copy so that you can make a form or a mold off of it. I guess let's just call it a splash then. I even get confused. So the thing I had before, the metal piece, would technically be called the plug. Then you could call this a splash off of the plug. But I'm going to make a mold off of the splash. So anyway, you want to get it locked into place, because it'll move and it'll change shape. And you can see how we got it really, really nice and conform to the shape of the camper. I don't know if you remember the ones up here in the front. We had really big gaps in there. Then that's where, on one of the videos, we put the Bondo in there. So now you can see we molded it. It turned out great. How's that look, Ollie? That one I sanded a little bit because it was a little low. But we're going to make the part off of this, and stay tuned. Thanks for watching. We're going to wax this up, get the plug all taped up and get it covered with plastic again. And then we're going to get out of here for the week. I'm going to work on it during the week here and there to get it ready for next weekend, so we don't have to keep making like molds or videos of these short little molding processes. We're trying to make the process go along faster. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a good weekend.